3 hours a night, that's what we bring you here, Court TV Live. 3 hours, deep dive into the world of crime and justice, taking a look at the biggest stories and the biggest trials as we get ready for gavel-to-gavel coverage on those stories as we track them for you each and every night here on Court TV Live. Hour 2 begins now. In Brunswick, Georgia, new developments in the shooting death of Ahmaud Arbery, including a text message from police to the owner of the construction site where Ahmaud was seen on surveillance video. Does this text reveal why Greg and Travis McMichael were pursuing Ahmaud? In Chicago, Illinois, R&B superstar R. Kelly is accused of sex offenses in several indictments in several jurisdictions. He is locked up waiting for trial, but he can't read, and his lawyers say they can't prepare him for trial if he's still locked up.
Most clients in federal criminal cases spend an inordinate amount of time reviewing everything that's produced by the government, and so you get a real benefit from your client's ability to do that.
In Baltimore, Maryland, a brutal murder with a major twist. A father and daughter accused in the murder of Jacqueline Smith after they told a whole different story.
He just started stabbing her, and then they just ran. They took off, and my father got out the car.
All I did was slam it in park to go chase these people.
And in Pueblo County, Colorado, the husband of a mom who went missing on Mother's Day posts a plea for her return on social media. Plus, the 13th Juror Speaks. Tonight, we take a look at your reaction on social media. Welcome back. Great to have you with us tonight. And when you are a defense attorney and you get a case, I mean, you've got to figure out, okay, what's the case about? What evidence is there? How do we figure out what the proof is in the case? What is our strategy going to be? How are we going to handle it? It's not easy. It's not easy. There are a lot of issues you have to deal with. But then, if you're in the middle of a case that the entire nation is watching, and a case that has political implications and societal implications, then it becomes a whole different ball game. Not every criminal defense attorney ends up with a case like that, but many during the course of their careers do have ones like that. Some are bigger than others. Well, Ashleigh Banfield, special contributor, back with us, and I know you spoke with our friend Mark O'Mara, who a few years ago found himself in the middle of one of those cases, Ashleigh.
Yeah, you know, I thought, Vinnie, that it was really interesting as the Ahmaud Arbery case starts to go forward. Of course, the two people accused in this case, the McMichaels, they have defense counsel, and those lawyers are starting to put together the case. And if I were a betting man, Vinnie, I think that they're starting to get a lot of mail from the public. This is a terribly divisive case, a socially divisive case, a racially divisive case. And the one person who could speak, I think, very eloquently about this is Mark O'Mara, because when he took on the George Zimmerman case, I think it's less well known that he received thousands and thousands of death threats, as did his wife. So I called him up and I said, I want to ask you a little bit about what the defense attorneys for the McMichaels might be up against, and how did your life change the minute you took on the case? Have a listen.
If I really look back, I would say it took about 20 minutes, and that was it, because I was 20 minutes away from the office when I got on the phone and determined I was definitely going to be representing him. And by the time that got out and I got to the office about 20 minutes later, maybe 5 minutes after that, the whole street was just covered with reporters. No exaggeration, there were probably about a dozen satellite trucks, 75 or 80 reporters in this semicircle around my little office building. And it really never ended.
What about the less pleasant side of doing this case, the defense case that you took on?
The Zimmerman case really focused the country and unfortunately really divided the country on cultural, social, and racial ways. And when you had that type of a dissonance, then people on both sides really got emotional about it. And unfortunately, I and my team were connected with George Zimmerman, not just I'm a criminal defense attorney doing what I'm trained to do, but I must be who he is, racist or or whatever it might be. So we had a lot of negative attacks and negative social media and emails. A lot of threats came through. I didn't know that was coming, and it was unsettling.
And I think you're couching it slightly. I mean, when you say hate mail, can you give me the details?
Sure, it was death threats, a lot of them. I think there were about 2,500 that were significant enough for the Sheriff's Department and Homeland Security to look into and see. They wanted Zimmerman dead, and they wanted me dead because I dared to represent him.
And it wasn't just you getting the threats.
As lawyers, you tend to get immune from that. Like doctors with blood almost. You get to sort of, this is what I do, and yes, people are going to be upset and whatever. But when the attacks were against my staff, and most importantly against Jen, it gets scary and gets real personal.
And Jen is your wife. They were making overt threats on her.
Well, they were because, we didn't live in some, highfalutin gated community. If you want to knock on my front door, you walk up the steps. And it was very frightening because although I was taking this on and was willing to, sorry, just a lot more scary when you have to bring someone you love into it.
What were some of the worst threats that came into Jen?
Rape. Well, several of them were, when I get your wife, I'm going to rape her and then shoot her the way George shot Trayvon, and see how you think about it then. And strangely, there were a couple of that ilk. The rape was sort of the bonus that they added to get to me.
Tell me a little bit about your workload and how that dramatically changed when you took on George's case.
The problem with it is that when Zimmerman hit, that was it was a tidal wave. I mean, it took over everything. But I still had to work on other cases because it was those cases that were keeping the practice alive and paying for it. We didn't make, of course, George didn't have any money. He got a bunch of money into the legal defense fund, but that did not come to the lawyers. Some people still think it did. But so I was working, 40, 50 hours on Zimmerman and 30, 40 hours minimum on my regular caseload, just because I had to keep my employees salaried and the lights on.
Financially, this took a toll on you.
Oh, yeah. And again, the Zimmerman case did not provide any financial support whatsoever. It was an enormous drain. When it was happening for those 20 months, I went through all my savings.
As difficult as it was, as financially stressful as it was still great for you in a way. Explain to me what you learned and how you grew.
It was pure, unadulterated excitement and enjoyment. And I don't mean to be ignorant of all the social pressures that were going on and the cultural concerns that existed. We were being interviewed after the event was over, after the acquittal, and I forget who it was, I think it was NBC. And Don West, my co-counsel on it that I brought in a couple months into it, was asked the question, well, afterwards, now what do you think? And he said something that sort of surprised me. He goes, now I know what the psychologists talk about when they talk about PTSD, because there was a lot of stress and a lot of this. And I'm sort of looking at him, and then I get asked, and I say what I just said to you, which is, I got to tell you, this is the best 21 months of my life, because we did everything well. We withstood everything that they sort of threw at us. Winning always helps. And no, I had a great time. So it really stretched my abilities and really gave me that insight as to how good you can be when you get challenged.
I think, Vinnie, what's so critical is one of the things that Mark added to that was that he had 7 or 8, I think, interns who were working for him through all of that. And they also worked 60, 70-hour weeks as well, and have gone on to launch their own practices. So when he said it was a very positive experience for him, although it drained all of his savings, his personal savings and that of his wife, Jen, he said it was just sort of a legal, I don't know what the best word to be here would be, epiphany maybe, in that he could do good work, he could practice the right kind of law with the right kind of demeanor, nothing ad hominem, No personal attacks, just law, just straight up law. He was Lawyer of the Year in 2013, Vinnie. And
Yeah, the one thing about Mark O'Mara is, yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, no, go ahead.
Well, the thing about Mark O'Mara, you say demeanor. To me, that's the key to his effectiveness in the courtroom. I mean, there's a way about him that is very comforting and credible that comes through. And I think that's not that it's unusual with criminal defense attorneys, but he's just cut from a different mode of criminal defense attorney. And he's actually now doing some work in another case that in Sanford, right, that has a similar fact pattern to a certain extent that the George Zimmerman case had, but he's found himself on the other side of that this time.
Correct. And I think this is a very profound piece of journalism that you and I are covering right now, because he said to me that when this case happened with Ahmaud Arbery, the hate mail upticked again for him. So it's not over. 8 years later, he's still getting hate mail. It dies down, and then there's an incident involving a young black man who's unarmed, and he will get hate mail again. What people don't know about Mark is that he actually represents a number of young black men. Just a couple weeks after the Trayvon Martin verdict, and the George Zimmerman verdict, we should say, he was approached by another family, but on the other side of the coin. And right now, 1 mile away from where Trayvon Martin died, another young 17-year-old black male died of a gunshot wound from a white homeowner. Adrian Green was allegedly breaking into this homeowner's car. The homeowner called 911 and said, "I'm going to fire a warning shot." Well, that warning shot went into Adrian Green's back, and he was dead out in front of that homeowner's home. And Mark O'Mara is representing not the homeowner. He's representing the family of Adrian Green. Have a listen to what he said about it.
It's a little strange to be on this side, particularly in Sanford, where so much happened with Zimmerman and Trayvon. But yeah, it's funny because I do a lot more of representing young black males and what they go through in the criminal justice system than the opposite. But when Zimmerman is the case that everyone remembers you for, they don't remember 30 years of representing criminal defendants, a disproportionate number of whom are young black males, because of the way the system is sort of biased or slanted against them.
So it's just a very interesting little nugget of information for those who are thinking right now, oh yeah, that guy, I didn't appreciate him getting Zimmerman off. I'm going to send off a nasty screed. He does a lot of benevolent work as well, representing Black communities. So he's a fascinating figure, and there's a reason that he gained the accolades he did. I think it was 2019, 2020. Actually, he was president of the National Trial Lawyers. That is a highly esteemed group of lawyers, and they're the ones that gave him the award in 2013 of the Lawyer of the Year.
Yeah, smart guy, very thoughtful, and someone we turn to a lot here at Court TV, especially when we have those cases down in Florida. By the way, that case, the shooting death of Adrian Green, is a story we're covering tomorrow night here on Court TV Live. I'll be speaking with Adrian Green's mother, and also speaking with Judge Alex to get his take on how the case has been handled so far by the state's attorney's office. So we'll have that tomorrow. Thanks to Ashleigh Banfield for that tonight, and to Mark O'Mara, of course.